you very much. Take us away.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks for the time and proud to be a sponsor of the SANS 2024 SOC survey. Shahari at Radiant Security. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Radiant Security. And I wanted to offer our perspective to the latest survey. And so, when we're looking at a survey, obviously what stands out is that staffing is the top challenge, with about 28% of participants highlighting that, alongside automation with 18%. And these are eventually the same challenge. There is not enough analyst resources, and they're not enough, and those that are there are not skilled enough to really do all the work. Simply put, SOC teams need more to get the output that is required to do a good job. And why is this happening? Where do they need the most help? As evidenced by this question, about SOC activity, 2 out of the 3 top activities that they do are actually in the post-detection category. These are not, creating new rules to alert. They're more in, what do they do in alerting? What do they do in incident response? And how do they understand, what the signals that they have, that they see mean, and what to do with them. The top work is done around TDIR, the threat detection, investigation, response. And again, the post-detection work is simply the #1 task in terms of, volume of work that the SOC teams do, and that's where they need help the most. So what is that manual work? When we look at the SOC incident workflow, it still requires primarily on manual effort. As an industry, we've done a lot in prior years to automate detection. There's a lot of great tools in the XDR world, in the UEBA world, and in all the other security solutions that really create good detection. It is very automated. And also on the right side, in the response side, there's a lot of good SOAR tools that have done a lot of work, to help automate the response. However, based on an Exabeam threat detection report, 65% of SOC time is actually spent within triage and investigation, which are very manual to date, despite of years of investing in automation technologies. And so what does it mean to really improve the SOC automation? What it actually takes is solving 2 main problems. The first one requires thinking, and the second one requires doing. Let's talk about the thinking, the triage and investigation. That's why people do it. Like, what is this alert? Is this a false positive? What happened? What caused this? What should I do about it? Et cetera, et cetera. Where on the response side, it requires a lot of doing, take those actions. They can oftentimes be very prescriptive, like, turn a knob in that product, send an email, notify people, open a ticket, et cetera, et cetera. These are the 2 problems that really are required to automate, a lot of the SOC work. However, when we look at the GPAs, as other people have highlighted within the SOC survey, both of these technologies that require thinking is obviously AI, and requires doing is SOAR. They scored, at the bottom 10 within the GPA, which means that the survey participants thought that mentioned that they were not satisfied with these tools. So let's talk a little bit about why they're not satisfied with these tools. So let's start with SOAR. SOAR is just half of the solution. It can create a very meaningful workflow. When an organization knows exactly what workflow they want to define, which takes a turn, which decision nodes to make, and what is the input and output at every step along the way, it is doing a really good job. With that said, it's not replacing the thinking. And while it does not replace the thinking, it does add a lot of unneeded complexity. And this is a screenshot from one of the SOAR vendors' websites. This is what SOAR's playbooks look like. It obviously requires a long implementation time and a huge maintenance overhead. Some people here mentioned using some open source threat intelligence feeds or commercial ones. what happens when these go out of business or they stop, providing the right value. Just exchanging them is a very big uplift in most implementations. And on top of all of that, there's a reduced ROI. Eventually those companies are simply switching analyst headcount into playbook engineering headcounts, and that doesn't solve the problem. These people are typically more skilled than those analysts that they replace, and the ROI is questionable at best. Now let's talk a little bit about AI. There are a few types of AI, and let me tell you about the two types that are prevalent today that people use every day now. Let's start from the left. The first one is AI and machine learning to really do analytics. This is in the pre-detection. There's a lot of automated correlation of data, and the output of that is detection. Oftentimes, this is based on anomalies. A great example to that is Microsoft Entra ID will identify some abnormal logins or impossible travel locations. It's exactly the technology they use for this. Why is it not the answer? Because it creates more work for the SOC. Eventually, now the SOC have even more alerts that they need to triage. And as we all know, 90% of them are false positives. Now let's talk a little bit about co-pilots. We've seen a surge of co-pilots in the last 2 years because it is with the soar of technologies like ChatGPT and other core models, it became very feasible for vendors who have data like SIEM vendors to add co-pilots. This is a post-detection technology that basically provide answers to questions. It does provide some productivity improvement, but a challenge here that the SOC analysts now need to know what they do. They need to know what questions to ask the co-pilot to get the response. And hence, it does not significantly improve the output of those SOC analysts. And now let's talk about the third type of AI that is made available with the advancement in generative AI that is going to help even more significantly SOC teams. And that is the AI SOC analysts. And these offer a new approach. Eventually, they emulate what a person would do, and they're not playbooks that have to be pre-programmed for every situation. And what these AI SOC analysts do is they will take all the signal as well as all the alerts from every security product in a customer environment. And now instead of having the SOC analyst take the decision, they will compile a decision, a report, and that will be the starting point for the SOC analyst, dramatically changing the SOC analyst job, from triaging the alerts into just reviewing the outcomes. And that is where the biggest gain in productivity is made available. And so you may ask yourself, how is this AI trained? How can it do that? And the answer is very simple. It is trained about exactly what your team and how you are training every analyst on your team. It is trained by using security tools and the IT telemetry. It is made available for the AI to query that. It is trained with, it knows how, it learns behaviors and anomalies, but it does not use it to create more alerts. In fact, it uses it to triage alerts. A great example is following up on my Entra ID example from just a couple of minutes ago. When an alert is created about any possible trouble, now what the AI SOC analyst does is looking at the telemetry and understanding whether that behavior more strategically is anomalous or not. For example, maybe it's anomalous for this person. However, one of the IPs came from the corporate VPN, and hence this was not travel. And so the AI SOC analyst is very good at that. They understand the organization and they learn the behaviors and use anomalies to triage alerts and not to detect more and create more alerts. It is trained on investigation and response techniques, like what is an alert, what could have happened, What are the potential issues to look for in, for example, in the endpoint use case? It can ask itself, has this process touched an identity store or a password vault? And from that, figure out that this may have evolved now into an identity issue and not into an endpoint issue. It is also trained on security industry and knowledge bases. Obviously, SANS have a lot of information, MITRE, as well as other, publicly available data resources that are used to train and fine-tune AI. And last but not least, there's emerging security research or threat hunting that it goes into the AI training that looks for, novel attacks that may happen at any given point in time to any organization. And with that, AI analysts are really helping to turbocharge productivity. They help to autonomously triage and investigate every alert, no matter where it came from. They're smart enough to understand the context, come up with the triage plan, execute it, and determine the maliciousness. They create that in under 3 minutes. It's investigation summary, root cause analysis, and specific response plan to help the team, to help the SOC analyst respond to this incident. And then again, they automate the response with 3 simple options. They provide step-by-step instructions. They provide single-click response for semi-automation, or they can even fully automated task execution if the analyst configures it to do it next time after they trust the AI. Last but not least here, these analysts don't need the same training as your MSSP does or as your analysts do. It deploys in less than 30 minutes via API integration, thanks to a lot of advancement in the security space, where almost every vendor now have good API integration that provides API access to data and to alerts. It works with your existing security tools and SOC processes. It integrates to your SIEM, to your case management program, and to any of your security products that you have in your stack. And last but not least, it does not require maintenance overhead. There's no coding, playbook, or tuning that is needed. And it allows the analysts to add their own aspects of what's important in their environment to give it more weight into the decision making and making those reports available to the analysts. So just to conclude, with AI SOC analysts, the job of the analyst is dramatically shifted from doing the work to reviewing the work, and that's where the productivity gain is the most substantial. Thank you.